One thing that we're certainly hearing a lot about around Gauge, I've seen a lot more CIOs present here this year than previous years.
Yeah.
There's almost a bigger play for technology, innovation, all things that are sitting with CIOs. Now, you have a really passionate community of CIOs who work with you, who really value the peer group.
Yeah.
What are the things that are top of their agendas right now as we face what is, people say, a constantly speeding up, pacey change, technology, innovation, etc. What's going on for CIOs?
Yeah. Well, so let me start by, I agree with you. I think by the circles of boomer CIO circle members I've run into in the hallways, I'd agree. I think we set a record, 24.
Yeah.
They're here. And the things that they're looking to learn more about is how they integrate technology into what the business is trying to achieve. So whether that's through automation, that's through integration of systems, even consolidation. I mean, you think about the client experience and how tech plays such an important role there. They're looking for how do we make this so it's an easy button for our clients, and we're not sending them to 5 different portals depending on what service they're using with the firm, and there's 5 different partners talking to them. So that's kind of the mindset. Whereas if you go look back several years, the IT professionals were more focused on hardware and the features and functions of specific software. I think the fact that their role has changed to integrate process and technology so much in the behavioral side of it that they're gravitating to engage to get some of that practitioner side and marry it with some of the tech sessions too.
So this probably pays back to what you've been talking about for a long time now, that the CIOs are becoming more strategic.
Yes, most definitely, and that's the evolution and just their mindsets and the mindsets of the overall leadership of the firm is recognizing technology is ubiquitous in everything we do.
Yeah.
And they need a seat at that leadership table so that they can listen and understand where they play a role, but that can also drive as they go and set their strategic roadmap as a technology as well.
And you mentioned already one of the things on that strategic roadmap is around client experience.
Yep.
What are some of the priorities that CIOs are thinking about when it comes to creating the client experience that they want to create?
Well, I said easy button, and that's what it boils down to is we don't want to create a barrier of friction for people to do business with us.
Yeah.
And, Simon Sinek, a lot of people know him, and his Start With Why.
Yeah.
And he also talks about how the decision making on whether you're going to use a provider or not is primarily emotional, and that connection, and it's about that experience. They don't care how you do a tax return.
Yeah.
They care about how much of a burden was it for me to get my information to my account.
It's those touch points, right?
Yeah.
It was the experience,
Yeah.
those key milestones
Yeah.
in, initiating of giving things
Yeah.
to provide that service. And then I guess the experience at the end when it's like, well, what did I get from?
Yeah. And do I get something beyond just a phone call? This is how much you owe or getting back. And if it's an audit, like, here's your results. Great. You look backwards. I'm glad that you got it right. I trust you. But how do we go beyond? Like, what are the levers I can pull to take my business to the next level? And that's where the insight and foresight comes in. Frankly, there's just not the capacity. There's the ability there in a session, and there's definitely the trust there. It's just, and technology is going to be a huge part of making it so they gain back that capacity so they can give out additional capability.
And you mentioned Simon Sinek Start With Why. His stuff with Infinite Gaming is a great bit as well. But for those who haven't come across Start With Why, the concept of the magic circle, the why then becomes the how, then becomes the what.
Yep.
That, to me, is something that I don't see enough accounting firms thinking in that way. We're thinking about what when it comes to evaluating technology. So we look at this one's got this button, this one's got this button, this one's got these many routines. Like, it's very much about the what rather than the why. But firms themselves, are you seeing firms starting to evolve their strategy, their marketing, their communications to embrace those concepts of actually talking much more about the why and the impact that they have rather than what they actually do?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the whole concept of change management has been around for a long time. I started at Arthur Andersen, and I still remember these big implementation teams I would be on, and we would try to sell in the change management piece, and that was the fluff that got cut right away. But it was the determining factor on whether our team stayed there for years on end because they had problems, or we could have more of a seamless adoption. So whether it's internal change or external change, at our circles there's a lot of discussion about frameworks that they can institute to help them get proactive about change leadership. And even we do a lot of process improvement based on Lean Six Sigma methodology, but I often tell people in those engagements, it's only 20% process stuff, process mapping and process improvement. The remaining 80% is answering those why questions, thinking of where's the pushback going to come from, and think about it from different audiences, and then proactively answer the why do we need to change and why will this be better? And if you do that, you're way out ahead, and you build buy-in a lot faster, and you can get momentum and start to show results, and that adds to the buy-in. So I would say yes, people are starting to take it serious, and we're having a lot of conversations in circles.
And I would definitely recommend to anyone if you've not read the book, start with why. Read the book. And it's as simple as like applying it into discrete parts of that process. So you talk about change management, which is a big category. So if we zero in on just, for example, communication. Communication is a key part of a change in a business. Communicating to your teams, communicating the impact to your clients. Now, a lot of people start those communications with what the change is. This is the change that's happening. This is what we all need you to do. Simple example. Twist it and start explaining to people, why are we making this change? And how is this going to impact you? And then talk about what change actually is. And that simple application in the magic circle shifts your communications completely, and you'll find that it resonates a lot better with all of it. It certainly cuts one tip I would give.
And I've said on a lot of demos of different software solutions.
You love a product demo, don't you?
But I can tell you the most successful ones are the ones that start with painting the picture of how this makes someone's life better, or how it makes the process better, and then they get into feature and function. The ones that just start with, we can do this and this and this, and just start clicking all over, you're like, I'm lost. I don't even know why you're showing me this yet. So
those are the best product demos when you're 20 minutes in and you're going, there's another hour scheduled for this.
That's why they don't let you do demos anymore. Right?
That was my demo style. I was like, look at all these things. It's cool, isn't it? So, and then it got to the point, Jim, where I actually had no idea what the technology did anymore. So it got to that point where even I was surprised at what was happening. And that's the point I knew I had to retire from product demo. So that was a little while ago, should we say. But let's go back to change management, because it's a topic that I'm very passionate about, and I know you really emphasize with this. You touched on there some frameworks that you talk about. Change management is one of those areas I think a lot of people like glaze over or don't really engage with because of some of the overuse of the term. If we break that down a little bit, let's maybe get tactical, tangible. What are some of the frameworks that you talk about, without giving obviously the secret sauce of in terms of what you would get as part of the food for circles, but what are some of the frameworks that you feel are resonating strongest with CEOs that they're getting most success from as they're starting to apply to some of the changes?
Well, I'm happy to. We talk about in the process improvement, we're leveraging Lean Six Sigma, which I mentioned. In the change area, we actually have 2 of our consultants are certified Pro-Sci framework.
Pro-Sci.
So like pro science, the start of science. And I think people shy away from it because it is so heavily focused on the behavioral pieces,
Psychology,
psychology, and people.
Yeah.
And the reality, when you talk about change, we all often fall from the trap. Like we think, how do we get the organization to change? Now, think about that. That's silly. Like organizations don't change.
No.
It's the people that make up the organization that change, that need to change their behavior, and often they don't. They might say all the right things, that I'm on board and let's go.
Yeah.
But they don't actually make the decision of whether they're going to change until it's time and they realize what this means to me. So when you need to get that, it takes work, and it takes figuring out who are the right messengers, the change message. Like big picture ones should come from the top, whereas those that are more like, what does this mean to me as a staff accountant? Those are going to resonate more from the person that supervises that person, that knows their day to day. That's going to hit a whole lot more than managing partner or CEO, coming and saying, this is how it's going to be better for you, and that staff accountant's going, and Mark, you have no idea what I do on a
I
day-to-day
do, Jason.
basis.
I have no idea what some of these people do on a day-to-day basis, Jim. You completely exposed me here.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I used you as an example, but the same would be true for me. If I go to my team and say, this is why it's going to be better for you, they're going to say, you don't supervise, you don't direct, you don't know what I do day
you
to
don't have a
day."
clue what you're talking about, Jim.
Yes, yeah. But that's not just my team that says that to me. So.
No, I've heard that around the whole scene. It's
Yes.
like, it's a commonly held view, I
Yeah.
think. By this point. I'm
Yes.
joking.
Yeah.
One thing I've seen a bit of a shift when we've been working with a lot of the bigger firms here in the US. It has been, I would say, a legacy mindset around implementations of new technology. And by that I mean, we see a lot of firms leaning towards like a very old school waterfall approach of like, we're working to this tight timetable, we've got a release on this date, so we need to work back when training's going to happen, when we're going to get all of the configuration, customization work done, etc. And I'd say it's causing some friction for a business like us that's so agile in our approach.
Yeah.
What are you seeing in terms of how maybe accounting firms are tackling or approaching or experiencing that more agile world that we face now, where we've got technology companies that are more fast-paced, they're moving. They don't do annual releases where they ship you a CD-ROM. At least not all of us do that.
Yeah.
I think there are a few that still do their
Yeah.
annual release. But like, how do firms start approaching working with cloud-based vendors who are more agile? How does that impact their organizations?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, you're spot on. There's a lot of legacy thinking around that. I mean, some of it is just in limits in terms of what can be integrated, data flowing, and openness. And I think we're seeing newer solutions. Solutions that are SaaS first, come out that are taking that open approach, that are causing some positive disruption in that area. But there are a lot of firms are already getting that a taste for what that can be like in the CAS groups, where you see that the successful ones have all adopted all cloud technology and are integrating, building those best of breed tech stacks. And it's my hope to get there in the other areas. But it has been a challenge and a need for a long, long time. I'm seeing, positive steps like inflow, certainly a different approach than what we've seen from some of the others in the past. But I would say overall, I think the message of we need more openness is being discussed more pervasively in the profession, and I think that can only be a positive.
Now, one of the things I took away very clearly when we came to the Boomer Circle was last back end of 2023 was there seemed to be, should we say, a lack of trust between the CIOs and the technology vendors in terms of promises that have been made that haven't been delivered and roadmaps this, etc. What can technology vendors do to try and build more trust, more connection with CIOs who it feels like they've been burnt a few times is there something there that's an easy win, or is this going to be a longer term play because the CIOs have just been burnt so badly over the last 5 years?
Well, you mentioned your time there, and I think you know the answer to this question because you did it splendidly. You have a relationship. I mean, you don't trust anybody that you don't have a solid relationship with, right? It starts with we got to that point in some way through a relationship, and we see it often in the circles that providers will come in and they think, okay, I need to sell.
That's because you charge them so much.
They've
got to sell.
Yeah, we got to get an ROI, right? But I coach a lot of them that if you come in and sell, you're going to walk away with no sales. But if you go in there saying, I'm going to build a relationship and I'm going to interject in the conversation where I think I can help people with my past experience with other customers, with their experience in my past life, any way like that value add builds that relationship and builds that trust, and then they come to you and ask you what you can sell it. And that's the how it needs to operate, especially in those close-knit communities like we have in our circles. And so, I mean, it comes down to relationship, but I would say that in our own business, there's some providers that we use that I have a strong relationship with, and my level of trust is up here versus the ones we kind of found and then we vetted and we implemented, and I don't really have a point of relationship there. My level of trust is lower. But there's also you to track record history, and that all plays into it. We need to get to, again, a more open and more integrated tech stack, which leads back to kind of where we started, like how do you make that client experience better? How do you, and when I say client experience, people automatically go to external clients first, but the huge component of that is the team working together in there. And so many of the topics here at Engage were about that talent pipeline. How do we address that challenge? Gain capacity. And if you're not focused on the internal client experience, which in tech is a big part of it, you're going to have challenges there too. So
I love seeing in those sessions where you've got firms who can't work out why their teams are not staying with them, they can't recruit people, and fine well they're using the worst technology there is in the market, they're not paying market rates. And you go, this is a simple consultancy surely, so could provide the recommendation to these guys. But one thing you did touch on there, and I think this is really pertinent to CIOs, is the old school has been like suite versus best of breed. You kind of either had to pick strategically which part you were in there, which swim lane are we going down? Are we going to go suite, and then we kind of get all of this stuff from one vendor, but it kind of doesn't really integrate, and it's not really like best in class for each one of these areas? Or do we go best of breed and we've got these challenges around integration, we've got now 20 tools doing something across the pieces? Are you seeing any shift in how that plays? And I'm thinking specifically around how SaaS and more cloud technologies have quite a different approach in this particular area. Is that playing out to change that strategic thinking for CIOs, Jim?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. I mean, I think, like I talked about, seeing it in other areas of the firm where it can work and it's proven out, and the voices have gotten strong. This is what we need over here on tax and audit. It's simply traditional service lines, if you will. So most definitely there's a focus on got to get to that integrated and streamlined. But at the same time, our leading CIOs are saying, I can't wait forever. And that's where they're figuring out how they can build leverage RPA and different other ways to automate things that if you really looked at the process of how it's happening, you'd go, there should be some process improvement before we...
It feels like RPA sometimes is the we call it sticky plaster. Is that word in the US market? Band-aid. Band-aid is the term.
Yes.
I got to learn all these silly Americanisms that we need to use.
Sticky plastic is Band-aid.
Yeah, Band-aid. So it's garbage and rubbish. Rubbish, that's the one I really struggle with. But RPA and things like that often feel like they're somewhat patching over a problem in the underlying process or a problem in the technology stack that's there. I've seen the best use cases I've seen for RPA are things where I go, that's just because your software is not doing what it should be doing. But is that where firms are using things like RPA? Maybe generative AI starts to play into that particular area right now. Is that somewhat where you're seeing it work, Jim, or what else are you seeing RPA, Gen AI, some of these are the trends really starting to help firms?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big component of where it's being leveraged. I think there's still a lot of data entry and redundant work and just mundane things.
Oh, those things you used to do after
yes, and the things that frankly nobody wants to do, that they're leveraging now and how do we automate it. And so, and that gets a little time savings, and then those people can be redeployed to do something that is a little more valuable. Whether enjoyable and more valuable to either
or maybe they can do nothing with that time and actually have a little bit more balance in that.
This is true too. This is true. Definitely don't want to. I mean, we preach this to our firms: is if your goal of gaining capacity back is just so you can do more of what you're already doing, then you're not thinking about it. It is truly about how do we build more capability, or as you pointed out, how do we make this life attractive to recruit and retain that top talent?
And that's where there's so much hype here, Engage 2024, around generative AI. The sessions that I've been to on the topic have been like full packed.
Yeah.
But you touched on there, the opportunity that we're hearing and seeing is probably more in the manual junior tasks, right? And this is where I've talked about this before, where it's almost like it's the intern role that really the Gen AI has the most immediate applicability right now, here today as we stand. But what are you hearing and seeing from firms in terms of there's a lot of experimentation on, say, in terms of Gen AI? Whatever you see in firms starting to actually deploy at scale instead, we get to know it. So would you say it's still a lot?
I think there's still a lot that are in exploration, but that's where they need to be. Not doing anything, that's the wrong strategy, and just blocking it, because this is an area that's going to move fast. But with Copilot coming out, we're seeing a lot of firms say, okay, we trust that this is a safe environment for us to try some other things that perhaps would public chat GPT. But I think that's the big thing. They need to be obviously in a safe way, testing, learning, and getting their skills up. So when a lot of these questions around risk and privacy and even ethical questions, we'll solve them. As those get answered, then I am ready, because I haven't buried my head in the sand. So I would say, just from going to probably a lot of the sessions you did too, it's a lot more than it was 12 months ago. It's a lot more than it was 6 months ago. It's moving fast, and I think we're gonna. And there's some major firms that have rolled Copilot out to a broad portion of their teams. And Mark Stout on our team, when he talks about AI, he puts up, because we're working with accountants, so we think about what's that going to cost me. And if you think about $30 per user per month, at first glance it adds up, but it's terrifying. But then he's done just some simple math with some assumptions that just save people 10 minutes a day. And we collect metrics, and if you apply the standard billing rate average that we get from our tech circles, you come out to like over $1 million, 1.34 million. And his point is, as a business leader, if someone says you need to pay $50,000 to make 1.3 or 1.4 million,
that's a tough decision.
It's not a hard. So yes, we need to find those use cases that are going to truly have those cost savings that mean something. They're not just cutting things out that probably shouldn't be doing anyway, or that add no value, but rather we're deploying in a way. So right now, I think there's a lot in the area of content creation and playing.
create some great content, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, you look at LinkedIn, you can see all of the AI generated posts. They're fantastic, those things.
Yes.
For content creation,
You can use AI to spot the ones that are created by AI.
I think there's a few on your LinkedIn profile sometimes.
Thank you, Mark.
But content creation, what else have you got?
I think efficiency, well, with Copilot in the Microsoft suite, and it kind of has content creation too, but there's things in Excel that cuts down the amount of time, things to summarizing, integrated into your inbox, but even documents that are long and, you've got to think about what it is and what information is in there. But if you can block that out, you can put a legal agreement through there and actually have it give you a summary that makes sense to people that aren't lawyers. And
that's going to be worth something.
Yes.
But no, I think that kind of summarization of long documents, helping with preparation of content. I use content in the sense of drafting an email or refining something where you can sketch out some bullet points and turn it into something that's actually presentable. So, and research seems to be a big area where you can start to really put down and manually through auditing standards, accounting rules, tax, etc.
Yeah.
There's a lot of low-hanging fruit there, but it certainly is worth thinking about in our business. I mean, I think there's a time and a place to understand our experimentation and practice, but I think there's also a real need to, when you're rolling out some of these tools, then actually state these 2 or 3 really clear use cases that you can use tomorrow. And going back to our earlier conversation, and here's why you should use this tool for these specific tasks that you're doing that are relevant to your role. That'll massively help with that initial use of the tool to then start to build into the experimentation. That's what we're
and we are on the cusp of that happening in the circles. I look at it as very similar path to RPA, which we just talked about. Everybody's like, great. Like, I go to a conference and everybody's like, you need a bot, but I don't know what that means. And I don't know how I would use it. And then we started to see progressive tech leaders figure out real, tangible use cases for it. Those would be shared in the circle. We started to collect those, and then we saw the proliferation and the others going, oh, okay, that makes sense, and now it made me think of this that I can do, and I think we'll follow the same path. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe by our summit, but definitely by our fall meetings, we'll have people coming in going, this is how we are leveraging Gen AI, and that just has kind of a snowball effect.
There's a lot of fast forwards.
Yeah.
They want to see and feel some real experience from others who are at the more bleeding edge.
Yep.
And then they'll jump on a lot of this stuff.
Yep.
So I think we'll start with, the Gartner hype curve late last year was putting Gen AI at the real top end of this is hype, and we're going to need to now go through that trough of disillusionment. But we're going to start to see some really clear use cases coming out of this in the next 6 to 12 months. And I see that's where it really starts to be growth rate. And it's about trying to get it into the core workflow as well. I see a lot of the experimentation is peripheral, outside, and there you definitely get that to bolt-on type approaches. If we can get this embedded into the core workflow, teams are following and just naturally be adopted.
Well, and I think it goes back to getting a lot of those security, privacy, and ethical questions answered that will open up the doors for more exploration and experiments. And there are some limits. I mean, and so much of that core workflow dealing with, sensitive information, private information, you're somewhat limited.
I follow all those thought leaders that just you just shove all of that into public chat GPT. It's absolutely fine.
Don't worry about it, right?
Social security records, the whole thing.
Start with your own, right?
Yeah, if you're willing to put all this on. So, anyway, Jim, really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Always great to chat.